Hello, darling. We are actually close the door. Be right back. Finally, this is happening. It has been a trip. I sat down actually to do your reading yesterday, and there's kind of this like, is this the right timing? Should I do this? And then it was like bing bang boom, like two or three other interruptions came in, and it was like that was the only window I had yesterday. I was like, okay, this is not the right window then because I have these other things that need to be addressed. Anyway, I have been meditating on the cards here. I can't remember if last time we used the Wildwood Tarot or if I used the Fountain Tarot, but this is the deck. Yeah, that's right, because we did the year spread for you. That's right. So doing the Wildwood Tarot again. And I've just been meditating on you and what I should be sharing with you. I know one of your main concerns was the Lover's card. So I've kept that in mind, but I also am just kind of leaving up to Spirit to see what messages should come through. What I've found with love questions is that there's usually more layers to it than just like, is this the right person? A lot of times that's because the answer to that could be yes for now, yes for this purpose, yes for this lesson. And so I've found that the messages that come through are usually more about how it's reflecting something inside of you, and then how that like reflection, how you can best like work to heal or address a pattern or something like that. So just a heads up, I don't want you to sometimes when we have a question we really want answered, it's easy to kind of just like tunnel vision on that answer and only look for that answer. And I just want to remind you that this reading is going to be probably a little more holistic for you, and that there will still be things to be gleaned from it, even if you don't get that specific answer. And I'm not saying you won't, I don't know. So, yeah, we're going to do this. Okay, I'm going to show you your spread here. Celtic Cross is what we're working with. Pretty standard when it comes to tarot, although there are so many spreads out there. You really can do just about anything you want with this. I usually choose for my readings to use the Celtic Cross because it's very complete. Like there's a lot going on here. Let me... I don't know if you've read this book yet, but it's pretty great. It's the Everyday Tarot. I usually recommend her. Biddy Tarot is, her name is actually Brigid Esselment. She's from Australia. She calls herself Biddy. She has a website called biddytarot.com, and I've recommended that for people when they're looking up the card's meanings. So that might be something to keep in mind. But I kind of like this book. It's not like it's not like something I use all the time, but it is a pretty good reference. Okay. All right, so I thought maybe she would have. So I intuitively use the Celtic cross. I don't always use it for like the um I don't always use it for like what other people, everyone basically has an interpretation of what the spread should be, like what position the card should be. But I do want to use it today just to, as a reference point. So I'm going to pull that up really quick. Here it is. This is the one I like. Okay. All right. Sorry for the delay on that. Okay. Okay. I'm going to just keep that handy. Okay, so we have a lot going on here. I like to start in the center here with the card where you are at present. And I think it's really interesting because it's actually the 14 of the major arcana, which is balance. And what I like about this guy is usually in a lot of traditions where you see this intertwining here of the two, this is a balance of the masculine and feminine energies. So I would say, like, as in terms of what you're wanting to manifest, you're exactly where you need to be. Being in a place of harmony and balance. The trick is going to be maintaining that, right? Like, be able to sustain that kind of harmony within yourself over time. In your recent past, we have the King of Arrows, which is the Kingfisher. And in the near future, we have the Page of Stones, which is the Lynx. And what's interesting about this to me is, the Kingfisher is a little more masculine. The Lynx is a little bit more feminine. I just tend to find large cats of prey more feminine for some reason, even though like the lions that we usually see with the big mane, those are always male, but cat, it's just something about cats that just feels very feminine energy to me. So the balance that you're in right now in this moment may not be long lasting. That's okay. That's just kind of a part of the journey. I do want to look up these two, the King of Arrows and the Page of Stones, though, just to see what we're working with here. Okay. So the Kingfisher, this tiny bird is equally at home in the air or in the water. With its remarkable ability to dive into the water and catch fish, the kingfisher has been symbolic of ancient wisdom and lore for centuries. And it says so this line, it says, use your strength to cut yourself free of what weighs you down. And so that's that's your recent past. I would say that's where you're coming from. And given that you're in balance, like in a state of harmony right now, I would say that was a job well done. So good work. Whatever it was that you felt you had to cut free of most recently, that was something that ultimately is serving you well. So just a little affirmation there. Okay, Page of Stones. All right. The lynx is one of the creatures at the very top of the food chain. With its speed and cunning, combined with its ability to climb trees, it is a formidable hunter as well as a fierce protector of its young. Pay attention to the physical realm. Be aware of the effects generated by everything you do. A strain of wildness and lack of forethought can sometimes hamper your way forward, but careful consideration redresses the balance. Balance. So I think it's just the Page of Stones. It's not an inevitable. I think what it's really serving as is a kind of like a caution sign, that if you're not aware, if you're not tuned into your environment, and if you're not like really devoting attention to what's around you, especially, and I'm just getting like the subtleties of things, my mom and I were talking about this morning, some things that had happened to me when I was a child that she had no idea about. And the reality is she was very busy. I mean, she was like managing an ER. She was an ER nurse at the time. She was on various like boards and volunteer activities. Ironically, she was on a committee for the prevention of child abuse, and that's what was happening to me. So it's just kind of funny, but because she wasn't tuned into the environment, she wasn't going to see the subtleties of my responses to what was going on because it was happening by a family member. So, which meant my reaction had to be really suppressed. And you wouldn't know that unless you were like really tuned in and going, wait, her energy is different. Like, oh, she's not laughing as much. Oh, she's, those kinds of things that you don't notice if you're busy. I don't know why I bring that up, except just that sometimes there are things that we don't know are happening unless we're really tuned in and present with our environment. So I think the links here is just saying, stay tuned in. Don't let a wild hair like carry you off and into the sunset. Like, just stay tuned in, stay aware. And the Ten of Vessels is the card overlaying these three, and that's happiness. You can see that at the bottom. It's usually, that card is usually a bridge or a barrier. I actually think it's the core. So it's like, I'm picturing like a seesaw. And do you know in a seesaw how there's like that center piece? So I just picture there's like this round metal piece that the board lays on, and it goes like this, And really the key to the balance is that fulcrum, like that piece in the middle. Yes, it's also kind of where the people are sitting on the ends and how close they are and whatnot. Like, don't make me get all physics on you right now. But the real center of it all is that piece holding up the plank, and that is, in this case, that's happiness. Your happiness is actually vitally important to you moving forward, to you being able to manifest the things that you want in your life. You need to be happy. Like, there's this part of you that that doesn't trust the other parts of you in it for its happiness. In other words, there's something about the way you've operated toward yourself that has been barbaric, comes to word, although it feels extreme, but it's the word that came in. Brutal. And so the part of you that really longs to manifest good, healthy happiness in your life doesn't trust the other part of you to treat you poorly in the process. And so therefore you can't move forward. And so just keep that in mind. And when I say happiness, I grew up in a very religious tradition that was when I stepped back and kind of looked at the history of religion, it's a facet of some extreme religions to say that that happiness is a sin, or the pursuit of happiness is a sin. And And that really to be a human, to be like Jesus is to suffer and to bear your cross, right? How many times do we say that? Like, oh, it's the cross I have to bear. And what we do is we use that as an excuse to stay in bad situations because we don't believe that we actually deserve to be happy, that we deserve to be free of those things. My astrologer guru has become one of my favorite teachers. And one of his tenets is the path of least resistance. Choose the path of least resistance. And it's funny because it doesn't mean less work necessarily. It just means there's less resistance for you to push against as you're working forward. You can still work hard and have a relatively like easy path forward. It's when you're meeting obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. So here's an example. I am in great need of a car right now. I can't get to work. I live tucked away in the suburbs because I'm close to campus that way, but otherwise I'm not close to anything, close to groceries, nothing. I'm isolated. And then I live on a giant hill. So biking, I can bike, but everything's so spread out. It's the suburbs. There's not an easy way to get anywhere. So my mom offered to give me her car. And we were talking about how I could do that. Well, I said, I'll fly home and drive it back. That's how that will happen. And so I looked at my schedule and it worked out. Next week's going to be perfect. And then like my best friend is available and willing to come with me. And like, it just really lined up, right? That this is what was going to happen. So my mom, very little resistance. In fact, I asked my boss, can I get my shift covered for next Wednesday? She's like, I will gladly do that for you. And I'm like, okay. She wanted to add more hours to my schedule. I said, can I wait till after next week? Yeah, no problem. My best friend, I already have that week blocked off. I was going to take it off anyway. I'd love to drive with you. Yeah, I'd love to pay for my ticket home. Like she's willing to pay for her own ticket home. And so, not a lot of resistance. Okay. In fact, very little resistance. Then my mom says, well, I even thought about what if you came home, what if you moved out of your house, came home for a month, worked while you're here, save up some money, when you then had a very blunt conversation with your boyfriend, who is very new, we've only been dating for 2.5 months, and asked if you could live with him for a couple months while you found a place. Okay, so levels and levels of resistance there. Right? Levels and levels. Okay. And that's what I mean. Is that a possible solution? Yeah. Yes. It's not a great one. It's not even a good one, but it's a possibility. But it is fraught with resistance all along the way. And so that's more so what I mean is like, if there is resistance, ask yourself why. One, ask yourself why. Is there a path that's less resistant than this? That just really is opening up to me. 2, is the resistance something you're creating? Okay. Are you moving toward happiness, but you're putting resistance in your own way? Because that also happens. If we really subscribe to the mindset that it must be difficult to be good, then we will create resistance on the path toward things we want. And what I'm learning from my teacher and what I'm also beginning to experience myself is that the path of least resistance is usually the one that's the most fruitful for us. And it's where love is, it's where self-love is, it's where community is, it's where grace and compassion and friendship and all of those things are. So, something to consider. Which brings us to our next 2 cards. The card in the hope category is the 8 of Arrows, which is struggle. And it's funny that this is in the hope category. I'll show you the one in the fear category. Attraction, 2 of Vessels. Okay. Which this is the sister card to your Lover's card. So, which I find fascinating. Hope and struggle. Okay. So what's your hope here? I think deep down your hope is that your struggle is over. I think that's deep down the hope. That you're no longer going to be like forging your way through the wind and the winter with just a little lamp and barely enough clothing to cover you and arrows flying at you all the time. Your hope is that this is the actually not the path. And I want to reassure you that it isn't. That's true. That your hope is spot on. And if you can take your hope and really let it become your belief, you're going to see things start to shift. Fear. Fear of attraction or fear of the lack of attraction? Which one is this for you? You'd asked about this person that's come back into your life. And I'm wondering if attraction is a piece of the puzzle you're concerned about. Because people can look really good on paper and they can be really good humans, and then we're still not attracted to them. And sometimes we let the story carry us into a relationship when there's not really a relationship there. And so if that's the case, I'm not saying I know for sure, but I would say evaluate where, if this situation with this person, if there's attraction there, and attraction is funny because it doesn't always mean like, oh my God, I want to like jump his bones. The guy I'm dating, I was definitely attracted to him. We actually met several years ago when he was in town. He's from here, but he was in Indianapolis, where I'm from, and I was living at the time. And we talked and made out until 5 a.m. Didn't have sex. I was actually really impressed that he didn't push for that. So now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but as women, I feel like that's kind of a norm even. And instead he wanted to know me, which was really fascinating. And I would say I was fine with that. I didn't, at that point, the attraction was different. And then when I moved here, we saw each other a few times, and the attraction it took the form of him being home for me. There was something I just want to be close to him. He feels like home. And I mean, that was very easily evolved into sexual intimacy. Sorry if that's too much, but it had looked different than other people I was sexually attracted to in the past. So this is just an encouragement to take a look at the intimacy and the attraction aspect of this person. Is it something where you're putting a prescribed picture on what the attraction should look like? Or is there no attraction, but you want there to be because this person is so great? If it's the second one, don't be discouraged, okay? Let the things that this person brings to your life set a new standard for you. Because if you want it that bad, there must be something really genuine about them. And I say that because attraction is one of the things that really drives relationships forward, right? I mean, if anything, having too much, having overwhelming attraction, having overwhelming attraction to someone can lead you into bad relationships, right? Because you don't consider all the other things that are also a part of that picture. So if it's a situation where there's a lack of attraction, but you really want there to be and you really like this person, evaluate the person and what they bring to your life and let that set a new standard for you, because it's more than likely that's their role for you in your life, is to elevate what you are looking for and what you believe you deserve. It's time. It's time. There was something that came up when I was shuffling the cards and I was meditating on you. I was also having some of my own stuff creeping in, just kind of inevitable. And one of the things that crept in for me was, this is the end of begging. This is the end of begging. And I thought, well, that's probably just for me, but it kept coming up as I was shuffling the cards for you. And I just felt like that was something to share. You know, when it comes to relationships, this is the end of begging for you. You're really coming to a turning point of saying, you know what? No, I'm done. I'm ready. It's not just that I'm ready for the right thing, I deserve the right thing. And here's what that looks like. It's the end of begging. Um, okay. So what I want to do is I want to go through these next ones. Um, all right. So there's in this line, there's in this position, it says this is your approach to the situation, and your approach is the page of arrows, excuse me, which is the wren. And I think what I love about here's what stands out to me about the wren. Yes, it's a very small bird, um, but uh, it's mighty. Okay, and I love that they portray it in a wintry setting because um, what I think about with wrens. I remember this bush outside of the yoga studio I used to work at, and it was just full of wrens all winter. I mean, they are. And then they were there in the spring, and they're always just singing and chirping along. Um, they have this really strong survival instinct, and it's not surprising to me that that's the card in your approach to this. You have a really strong survival instinct. Don't forget the other half of the wren, though, the happy, cheerful, celebratory part, because they aren't surviving. They aren't surviving like this, where they're like, do you see her? I wonder if you can see her face. It's like I'm barely surviving, right? Like I'm white knuckling it. Wrens do it with a song and their heart, and so don't be afraid to sing. You know, um, I had a friend yesterday tell me it's okay to struggle, and there was something really relieving in that permission because it reminded me that struggle is a part of growth. And we can still be happy and celebratory in the midst of struggle. We can be going through really hard things and still enjoy life. We don't have to reflect that we are having a hard time all the time. It's okay to share it, to share honestly, share your heart. And I'm having a really hard time. Like, me personally, I've been fairly depressed the last few weeks, trying to deal with some changes in my life. But I still want to have fun. I still want to laugh. I still want to enjoy life. And so when I'm able to, I do. Um, so just don't feel you have to always put on the posture of like, um, I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. You can still be happy, right? You can still choose happiness. Your happiness is important. Okay. The environment currently, which is 15. Um, the Guardian. You can see this guy. Um, so I just honestly, there's something about this picture that reminds me of my grandparents' musty old garage. And then they used to have this like kind of weird like basement thing too that went around. I don't know, it was like a crawl space, I think. I don't know. We were kids. We got into all kinds of things, but it was musty and weird and full of history, right? Like there's just kind of this lore about we would tell ourselves stories about our grandparents, or I'd hear little stories and then I'd associate with the house they were in, and probably had nothing to do with that. Um, like my grandmother's older sister actually died when she was a baby, and I used to picture that the house my grandparents were in now, as my grandmother being an adult and married with her own kids, was the house that happened in. And so I'd make up all these stories as I went through these weird, dusty, musty places. Anyway, I just get this sense that there are some old skeletons in the closet that are that are hindering the passage, and whether they're true or not, they're true to you. And so it's time to really dig through those. And those skeletons don't have to be like um, family secrets or anything. I mean, they can be just old belief patterns that you've held on to or that have cushioned you, or given you like have protected you in some way, right? Because this guy is the guardian, but he's outdated. Okay, he's expired. Those belief systems that have protected you along the way, they're expired. It's time to clear them from the way, and only you can know what they are. So it's going to be important that you spend some time in meditation and ask yourself, what are some things I believe about myself? That was my guru's question for us today was, what is the oldest belief I hold about myself? And I sat there for a minute and I was just like, where to begin? The oldest? What's the oldest? And I just thought, I pictured myself as a tiny little girl being completely quiet and in a room full of loud adults, and an old thing that I don't know if my dad ever said this out loud, but it was definitely assumed, which is that kids should be seen and not heard. And I've had trouble with my voice ever since, right? Because that was an original belief for me. So what is that for you? What is one of the oldest things you believe about yourself? And does it still serve you? Or is it an old skeleton in the closet that needs to be cleared out? That needs to be just wiped away? Let's see. Okay. What you need to know. It's interesting because I brought this up at the beginning before I even dealt the cards. What do I need to know? 7 of Stones, healing. So there's some interesting things going on in this card. First of all, look at the horizon. Like, it's tilted. And I know it's tilted because even if it were a hill, the tree would still grow upward towards the sky. That's just how plants work. So there's something tilty, very odd about this, the angle of it all. But we also have the green woman here, or the green man. I think it's feminine energy with the masculine here. Allow the feminine to nurture your masculine. Okay, so what does that mean? Have I recommended Women Who Run with the Wolves yet? If not, you need to read it. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, Estes, Women Who Run with the Wolves. She talks a lot about the divine masculine and the divine feminine. She's going to give you a much, much better idea of what that means and how to work with it than I can. What it means, though, from this end is that there are still aspects of the masculine that are undergoing healing for you. And by that I mean, we are all composed of masculine and feminine energies, and we are at our best when those energies work well with one another and when they're empowered, okay? For a lot of women, our masculine has been disempowered or is over-empowered, like hyper-empowered, if you will, because we have had to either tame the wild in us, the masculine, anything that the divine masculine represents, which can be leadership, that warriorness, protection, all of those things. The feminine, on the other hand, represents like nurturing and that motherly role, right? So for most women, both of these are out of balance because the one is disempowered, the one is overempowered, or vice versa. A lot of times our feminine can be overempowered because we have had to become mothers, or we've been forced into situations in our family where we were the nurturer, right? What you're doing is taking all of that, healing it, all right, and then allowing the feminine to nurture the masculine. and empower the masculine in that way. That's probably one of the things missing from us culturally and as a world, is that the feminine is so discarded and used, um, that and dishonored, that it can't appropriately nurture the masculine in the world. And so then the masculine goes into this like hyper masculinity, toxic masculinity, you name it. And all of that can happen inside of us. Okay, that's not just like individuals we know, that's usually happening inside of us. So that's something you need to know, is that healing is happening. Read that book. It's going to give you some really good pointers on how to really assist in that how to be aware of it and how to assist in that process. All right. The resolution to it all, Four of Bows, celebration. And I love this because these are all women like gathered together and they've got that raging fire behind them. So here's the thing about this reading. Like, apart from a few directives I've given you on like how to root out some things and do some healing, you got a lot of good going on here. Okay, things are good for you, and it's okay if you celebrate that. All right, it is absolutely okay. In fact, it's encouraged. Do it. Celebrate. Go dancing with your girlfriends. Have a girls' night. Drink some wine. Allow yourself space to rest. Acknowledge that the struggles of the past are simply that, the struggles of the past. If you want to keep manifesting them, you can by simply wishing them into being. If you'd like them to be behind you, you can also do that by simply wishing that to come into being and believing that the thing you want to happen is going to. So my teacher totally called me out yesterday. Okay. So long story short, it's been a roller coaster of a month. And one of those issues has been rent. I didn't get financial aid that I needed. So I wasn't able to make rent this month. And I've got my feet to the fire right now trying to make that happen. And the thing I kept thinking was, I'm just waiting for my roommate to kick me out. I'm just waiting for her to tell me it's time to leave. Okay. Well, I think we can all agree if that's what I'm focusing on, then that's what I'm going to make happen. So my guru yesterday, he says, it's time to change your thinking. If you don't expect the universe to show up, they're going to heed your wishes and not show up. All right. So, but if you say, I need you to show up, it's time, you're going to start to see some response. So yesterday he actually said, if you've been thinking, oh, but I'm going to be homeless. Okay, literally what I was thinking. Switch that around to say, okay, universe, I need you to manifest now. I need you to meet my needs. Here they are. And I'm telling you, I said that and immediately my boss emailed me. He was like, hey, someone's like needing to change their schedule. And do you want 3 more shifts, which is an additional 12 hours a week? And I was like, yes, please. Within a half an hour, my mom and I were talking, and she tells me, oh, you can have my car. It's been a year I've been asking her if I can have her car. I actually stopped asking because I asked her once, and she was just kind of like, nope. That was a year ago. So I was going to fly out for spring break last year and get it. And then out of nowhere, she's like, well, if I had a way to get it to you, I'd give you my car. And I said, well, I'll fly home and get it. And she goes, okay, let's make it happen. Okay. So, I mean, I won't say I'm a firm believer, okay? But I definitely have said, all right, man, I need you to manifest this. I need my needs met. And I finally really believed that I deserved to have my needs met. And that, and I've told the universe since, like, my faith is on a string. Like, it's hanging by a thread, but it's there. I'm not going to leave it. But it's still hanging by a thread. So I need you to really pull forward and like really convince me that you're on my side right now. Okay. So I think it's important to be honest with the universe too. But just remember that what you think forward is what you will manifest. So, where can you root out some of those belief systems so that you can be believing something different? As long as you have those original belief systems in there talking you out of it, those are like primal in my mind. Those are instinctual, and it's going to be very hard to believe anything else until you really get to the root of those things. So, all right, that's where I'm going to leave you for now. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns. You know the drill. And sending you all my love and best energies with this reading, and I hope that it serves you well. Namaste, dear one.